So, when I was 10, my school went on a school trip to Edinburgh, Scotland. It took ages to get there, and by the time we did, everyone was really tired. I was sharing a room with some of my friends, and I'll call them by their initials. We unpacked when we got into our room, and we just chilled for a bit before we went out for a tour of the city with a guide. Everyone was really tired, so no one was really paying attention. When we got back to our hotel at 8, we were told to go to bed, so we all went to lay in our beds, wide awake because no one could sleep. At about 9:30, there was a really loud truck driving past our window, so I got up to shut the window because it was cold anyway. When I looked down, I could see on the opposite side of the street an old man outside the door of the house opposite to us, staring up at the roof. Also, there were a group of teenage girls talking quickly in a foreign language. I did what any reasonable person would have done, and I looked up as well. Directly across from me, standing on the roof of the old man's house, there was a man, his feet inches away from the ledge, looking at me. I still remember his face, and that he was wearing a hoodie, tracksuit, and Nike trainers. It dawned on me that he was going to jump. I shut the window immediately and told my friends, all of whom were petrified. O started crying and T started hyperventilating, and just then there was a knock on our room. Then came more knocks. Something was frantically banging on the door. By this point, we were all practically shitting ourselves. Although my friends told me not to, I opened the door, and therein came the girls who were down on the street, and they were talking in, I think was Italian, asking in broken English where my teacher was, so I pointed them down to the corridor of Mrs. F's room, and they left. Moments later, Mrs. M came in, white as a sheet, and told us not to look out the window. I told her that we already had, and she started to break down, telling us to get our stuff and go. Mrs. M then took us downstairs into another room where we stayed the night, and she stayed with us. The rest of the trip passed without incident, of course. Our parents were informed, and I could see the next morning that even the teachers were visibly shaken. Nobody told us what had happened to the man on the roof. For all I know, he could be dead, or he could not. But none of my friends ever forgot what happened that night across the room from 407. We got lost in the forest, and it was one of the strangest experiences of my life. The following is a story that took place quite a few years back now. However, it still baffles me completely, and I'd like to share it. I'm a teenager now, and I've been scouting or being a Boy Scout nearly my whole life, and I really enjoy exploring with my friends and being trusted more now as I'm older. A few years ago, me and two girls named Amy and Harriet were asked to head into the woods surrounding our campsite to find a long, straight stick suitable for carving into a point. Bear in mind that I was a lot younger back then, and Harriet was the older one, and Amy was only 1 year older than me. We had been walking in deliberately the same direction as to not get lost, and we also memorized the surroundings as we went. This made it easier to find our way back. About 15 minutes in, we couldn't find anything to take back, so we turned around to return to the campsite. That's where the initial panic set in. The trees had almost unnaturally knitted themselves together in such a way that it seemed our path was non-existent in the first place, like it has just vanished. We looked around 360 degrees, and now everything looked exactly the same. Trees we could have sworn were differently from another appeared as all copies of the same tree. We kept walking in what we thought was the correct direction, while shouting for help, and eventually we came to a concrete path, almost like a road but very thin, separating the forest, splitting it into two. We didn't follow the road as it went into the wrong direction from our campsite. On the other side of the path was more forest, however, nearby was an abandoned shack, likely used for storage or whatever else. We had no idea anything like this was out here in the woods, so we just kept walking. We eventually came to a road we didn't recognize. A woman wearing a pink and purple outdoors coat walked past and frantically asked for the directions of our campsite, as by now, according to our watches and Harriet's phone, we'd be walking for about an hour and a half. She said she'd never seen us before, but she said there's another campsite in that direction. We followed her advice and eventually came back to our campsite. We frantically apologized for being away for so long and that we couldn't find anything. The leader, Ian, could see all the three of us were shaken up, and he stated confused that we'd only been gone for 25 minutes and that our free time was still going on. To this day, this baffles all three of us, as our free time was 40 minutes long and our watches and phones said we'd been gone for hours. The forest we were lost in felt crushing and claustrophobic, like we'd entered an area that concept of time didn't apply to. I believe in the paranormal, however, this was unlike anything I've ever experienced before. It literally was like we'd been in some sort of time vortex or something, and that hours in the forest were only minutes in the rest of the world. The feeling was very strange and it stuck with me for the rest of the camp. Okay, so before I want to begin, I want to say that I just created a Reddit to tell this story that occurred only about an hour ago. The events that occurred did not happen to me directly, but to my sister, and quite frankly, the fear in her voice and eyes proves to me that every second of this strange occurrence is true. So, it's my birthday today, and it's about 10ish o'clock, and we were all settling down from a long day. My sister Marilyn usually goes for a couple of runs a day. The route she takes and the time she goes to varies when she feels in the mood. Tonight she decided to go after we all ate and had a cake. She informs us that she felt like going on a run because she felt bad from eating too much tonight. As per usual, we always tell her to stay safe and be careful because the town we live in is known to have some sketchy people roam around. So she begins her run, taking her normal route, passing houses, shops, woodsy areas, bridges and more. She likes to play music on her headphones while she runs, which is exactly what she was doing. She's jogging along, listening to her music at a normal volume when she happens to have reached the bridge and a crosswalk. Keep in mind that the town is completely silent at this hour, because everyone is most likely in bed. Anyway, she hears a very loud buzzing like kind of sound you would hear after getting an announcement at school. She takes her headphones off and stops for a moment to think what the heck it was. Almost suddenly after the buzzing, she hears a man's deep, sinister voice come over either the crosswalk or the power lines, and it says, "Sup, look, and smile." Her eyes immediately begin to tear up. Marilyn does not get scared easily, but this has terrified her. It brought tears to her eyes and she screamed in fear as she ran as fast as she could to our house. She told me what happened and I could see the terror and the trauma in her eyes. We have no idea what it could have been, Hijackers, hackers, the government, aliens, who knows? All I know is that she was telling me the truth and that this was one of the most sinister, chilling stories I've ever heard.